Hi, welcome to Prime Recap. A treasure hunter is trapped in a desert with giant, carnivorous worms. Today we will recap the story of the movie, Mongolian Death Worm, from 2010. We are at an oil refinery in Mongolia that has experienced several pump motor failures. The operations manager, named Patrick, was scolding his employees about the recurring machine problems. And once again the factory alarm sounded, signaling another engine failure. Patrick went into a rage, and ran to check what was going on, leaving only one worker alone fixing the pump motor. However, the boy heard a strange noise coming from the ground. He looked around to see where it was coming from and was suddenly attacked by a giant worm that emerged from the ground and devoured the worker. The next day, a man named Daniel, who is a treasure hunter, gets involved in a chase with a gang of local bandits. The treasure hunter was only saved because he met the local sheriff, named Timur, who was patrolling nearby. As soon as they saw the police, the gang of bandits immediately fled. Daniel is in the area in search of ancient treasures left behind by Genghis Khan. During this quest, it is clear that some gang of bandits would be a nice obstacle. The policeman warns him not to make trouble with this gang of Chief Kowlin because they are extremely violent. A few miles away, in a remote village called Sepegel, a doctor named Steffi is busy treating villagers who have been affected by an outbreak of a disease. The villagers got sick because the river water in their village was contaminated with toxic substances, and it is not known what caused this. With the help of midwife Thuin, they are doing what they can to ease the pain of these people, since there are no doctors or medicines to treat them all. The problem is that Steffi is waiting for a team of friends who are on their way to Sepegel to bring needed medicine to the residents. Only this team, consisting of Alicia and Philip, have their car broken down in the middle of nowhere. They were even found by police officer Timur. However, since he received an emergency call over the radio, he could not give Alicia and Philip a ride. Daniel, who happened to be passing by, was stopped by the policeman, who asked the treasure hunter to take Alicia and Philip to Sepegel at the medical base for treatment of the outbreak. The hunter even agreed to take them both, if they paid for it. Even though Alicia thinks the guy is a mercenary who doesn't even give charity to a medical team on a mission, there was no choice but to pay up, and so they went on their journey together. Meanwhile, the refinery employee named Talai notices a very strange hole where that factory worker disappeared the night before. He told Patrick a Mongolian legend about the sudden appearance of a large hole in the ground, which was a sign that the death worm had awakened from its sleep. Patrick thought it was ridiculous and just ignored the stupid story. A worker was in the basement checking the machines when he heard an ominous noise coming from the dark side of the room. The worker ran to check and was captured by a disgusting and bizarre tongue of the giant worm. The guy was swallowed and simply disappeared without a trace. Patrick looked worried when he saw a black car entering the factory premises. For it was one of the inspectors named Brixler, a representative of the oil parent company, to investigate the recurring machine failures. Patrick and the worker Talai are hiding a bizarre secret that we will still get to that has caused all these machine failures. If they don't act fast, they will be discovered. The team in Daniel's car is in trouble again, because the old wagon suddenly gave engine trouble in the middle of the road. Daniel suggested that it was better to hide inside the forest because the Kowlin gangs of bandits always walk along the road at night. Even though they stayed in a small hidden camp, Kowlin's henchmen managed to find them and took the three of them to the gang's base. They arrived at Kowlin headquarters in the morning and were immediately taken to the boss's tent. Apparently, the reason Daniel became Kowlin's target was that he invaded his territory while searching for treasure. Kowlin gives Daniel a good thrashing, and the hunter begs not to kill him and promised to give half the profit if he can find the ancient treasure. Obviously, Kowlin was annoyed and kicked him in the face. The trio ends up being held hostage and would surely be killed soon. Daniel manages to untie himself with a knife and free Alicia and Philip. They immediately devise a plan to escape from there. Daniel warns, as soon as you hear gunfire, run. He sneaks into one of the tents and steals a rifle. Then he hides behind a car and shoots Kowlin's henchmen one by one. Alicia and Philip took the opportunity to run to a car and escape from there. Daniel is surrounded with several men shooting at him. But lo and behold, help comes in a rather grim form. A horde of demented vermin emerged attacking the henchmen, including Kowlin himself was surprised by one and swallowed alive. Daniel saw the fuel tank near where the giant worm appeared and immediately shot it with his last ammunition, completely blowing up the camp and killing the grotesque worm. Alicia and Philip have managed to get to the place where Daniel's car broke down. They immediately transferred medical supplies and medicines to the carom they were using and left in the direction of Sepegel because the villagers were waiting for the medicines. Back at the refinery, Brixler reported to the parent company in America that the plant had to close temporarily because the damage was severe. While Brixler was still on the phone, Patrick suddenly entered the room and hung up the phone. He then threatens Brixler with a gun, trapping his boss in the basement. And Daniel finally managed to escape from Callan's headquarters. Magically, the engine of his car started again. How convenient is that? When he tried to reverse, an evil worm jumped on the hood of his car and a horde started surrounding him. Daniel ran over those pests in the best style and even managed to knock the giant worm off the hood. Alicia and Philip finally arrived in Sepegel. They managed to get medicine to Steffi and Thuin. But the situation was very complicated. Many people are dying, and it seems that according to one little old lady, worms have caused all this. Daniel also arrives there and warns Alicia to move the patients to a safer location because giant Mongolian worms are approaching Sepegel. Then someone informed them that they could call and ask for help at a nearby oil refinery. Only you know well that the situation there is not good either. The criminal duo needs to get a large box from the basement to the truck at the refinery. Inside the container is the ancient treasure of Genghis Khan, which has been the target of Daniel's search. This was the secret of the two. Daniel and Alicia arrived at the refinery facility. And right at the entrance courtyard they already felt a gigantic earthquake. When they tried to enter through the main door, they were threatened with a gun by one of the workers. Named Bana, Alicia explained that she was a doctor and was on a humanitarian mission to help the sick population of Sepegel. Bana, who is also from there, decided to let them pass for the sake of his own people. What they didn't count on is that a giant worm tried to attack Daniel and Alicia, but Bana used his gun and killed the thing. Brixler, who was still trapped on a pillar in the basement, heard something moving and the echo of that bizarre growl. The monster approached, sneaking down the pillar, and even though Brixler tried to fight his way out of the horrible thing, it was already too late. In the village of Sepegel, Philip and Thuin were getting water from a well. When the girl was pulled hard into the hole, Philip panicked and screamed for help. As soon as Steffi arrived to see what was happening, a stream of blood gushed out of the opening of the well, and a horde of worms began to crawl out of it. Fortunately, Alicia was able to contact police officer Timur by phone and asked him to check the situation in Sepegel village because a giant worm had appeared nearby. Timur quickly followed with the car there, and indeed the giant worms surrounded the Alden's cabin. Timur took the rifle and from the top of the truck cleaned up the place. Daniel and Bana run down to the basement, trying to turn off the drills, as they are the ones that cause the giant worms to be drawn down there. When they hear a huge growl, they immediately run away because surely there was a giant monster approaching. Daniel then remembered the local legend that if you find the lair of deadly worms, the location of Genghis Khan's treasure will also be there. Bana, who desperately tried to run away, ran into Patrick and Talai. He tries to warn them that the refinery is being raided, but ends up being shot in the back. Alicia is asking the military for help over the phone and is approached by Patrick. He forces the doctor to go with him to the basement to get Daniel. That, by the way, the treasure hunter finally finds a tunnel in the underground drill room. This is where the criminals kept the secret of the treasure. Besides, of course, the chair where Brixler was locked up, totally covered with blood and a huge trail on the walls. Using Alicia as a hostage, Patrick reached into the basement, threatening everyone with a gun. But in the moment of his distraction, when he saw the blood on the chair, he arrested Brixler. Daniel attacked him and the two of them got into a fight. To make matters just a little worse, a strong earthquake struck the place and the giant worms appeared in the tunnel. Apparently even the queen came to the party this time. Daniel and Alicia managed to escape, but Talai was not so lucky and was eaten by the worm's disgusting tongue. While the duo fled through the corridors of the refinery, Daniel was intrigued by a pile of wooden crates in a room. He then opened the containers and, as expected, there were the treasures of Genghis Khan. Daniel was faced with two choices that seemed complicated to him: save his life or transport the treasure chest. While he was arguing with Alicia about what decision to make, here comes Bloody Patrick again, pointing a gun. Luckily, Sheriff Timur appeared and pointed his rifle at Patrick. But greed was a heavy price that Patrick had to pay, for the Queen of Worms came up behind him and devoured him without any mercy. Daniel finally decides to blow up the oil refinery and with it destroy the treasure and the worm horde, along with their queen. He finally made the right choice. Together, Daniel and Alicia opened the pumps again and increased the pressure to the maximum limit. They ran out of there because the factory was about to explode. And they were ambushed by some more giant worms. Timur, using his weapon, did what he could. But by a great misfortune, he ended up being eaten by the queen that came up right behind him. A strong tremor erupted, the pump engine began to let out smoke, and the fire spread throughout the factory, and Daniel and Alicia continued to run until they finally managed to escape the big explosion that destroyed the worm's lair once and for all. Incredibly, Daniel was very lucky because the explosion threw several treasure artifacts out of the factory. He then escorted Alicia back to the village of Sepegel, and he decided to donate his goods for the construction of a hospital in the village. And of course returned the money paid by Alicia to take them there. And so ends the Mongolian deathworm. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.